Hey, welcome to Mates TV. So yeah, Mo Salah has dropped an absolute bombshell on Liverpool Football Club, the footballing community and Liverpool fans by speaking in the mix zone after Liverpool's 3-3 draw with Leeds United about how he feels that he's been thrown under the bus by the football club, a breakdown in his relationship with Arne Slot, broken promises from the summer, and has also kind of intimated that he thinks the Brighton game at Anfield might well be his last game for Liverpool and Anfield. And what even is this season? I can't. I have times in this life that I've chosen for myself when I do think I've seen it all, I've done it all, there are no more. You know, when Alexander saw the breadth of his domain, he wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer in the festive season, of course. And then now Liverpool continues to just throw up madness at every twist and turn of things. And, you know, we've gone in the last couple of weeks of having big old thoughts about Arne Slot and his position as Liverpool manager. I sat here, a week or so ago, doing a shoot from the hip sort of freestyle video about the situation Slot finds himself in. I was concerned about whether he was losing the dressing room after the Forest defeat and the PSV defeat. And then, you know, since then, Liverpool have won 1 and drawn 2. It's not been by any stretch, an instant bounce back to form. And in those games, of course, what we've seen is Mohamed Salah benched, put to the side. And this isn't totally shocking because I think there've been, numerous shouts from various quarters during Liverpool's really bad run that maybe it was time to not rely so heavily on Mo Salah. He kind of came out himself last year and almost admitted that, he didn't have to do the pressing stuff because he was the guy who was tasked with scoring the goals and what have you. And listen, when that's working, it's working. It's great. There are no problems. But last season had a lot of sort of nightmarish PR undercurrents anyway, with obviously his contract situation, which ultimately is resolved in the summer. And I think collectively Liverpool fans breathe a big sigh of relief. Yes, Trent Alexander-Arnold, wow. Yes, Trent Alexander-Arnold moves on, but Van Dijk and Salah stays, two generationally gifted, perhaps two of the best to ever do it in their respective positions, not just for Liverpool, but in the Premier League and the world. Committing to another couple of years of being at Liverpool feels like a massive win. But this season, for a variety of reasons, it's simply not worked. It hasn't worked. And Liverpool, their title defence has crumbled before we even got into November, let alone December. And now this. Not what any of us wanted. Not what any of us expected. I'll be honest, I was fully prepared to head into my media blackout on the back of another disappointing Liverpool result. And then I'm going to Inter Milan to see the game on Tuesday. So yeah, just kind of gear back up for that one really and see what happens. And I'd heard rumours about Salah, rumours that he might be off in January, but I was prepared to dismiss that because it was such an obvious low-hanging fruit news approach. The Saudi interest is always going to be there. He's not in great form. He's on the bench all of a sudden. There was news articles doing the rounds on radio stations or whatever that, they were going to come back in with a bid for him and that. But I just thought it's fanciful nonsense. It won't happen. I don't think the long-term plan is to keep Salah in the team. I'd have been stunned if he'd seen the 2 years of his contract out as a mainstay, 90 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week footballer. But the idea of him going in January just seemed crazy. Well, it really doesn't seem that crazy anymore, does it? Now, listen, I'm going to talk a little bit around this. But what I will say is, if you feel like I've not covered a particular point, what I have done, and I was sat up into the early hours of this morning, working my way through this, is I've put an article out on my Substack page, which is matepublishing.substack.com. I'll link it below and probably at the end as well. But yeah, it's easier when you're writing stuff to kind of structure things out and get your thoughts more coherently. So I'll try my best to cover some of the key points from that here. But if I miss anything, obviously use the comments and let me know. But also read that and check that out because there's a good chance I've covered it in there. Look, I don't see there's any reason to be kind of nasty about this. I think we're in a very weird and a very unique sort of situation. I like to see the human in things as much as possible. I can disagree with something, I can disagree with someone's stance, but there's no need to be kind of horrible about it. So I want to get that out up front as much as possible. But players coming out and doing stuff like this never sits right with me. Yeah, particularly when they've got the kind of voice that carries that someone like Mohamed Salah has. It does feel a bit self-interested rather than the wider interest of the football club. Now, I understand that if you feel like the football club's not got your interest at heart and you're maybe being forced out the door, then why would you go to bat for the football club? I think that makes a pretty reasonable, logical sense, but it doesn't mean that I like that, because I don't like our dirty laundry being aired in public in that regard. Liverpool are already the butt of the joke. They're already in the mouths of some, the Z list of pundits doing the rounds on every mainstream and non-mainstream media outlet with a talking point, and I don't like that being the case. It's like how I hate Liverpool players going on international duty and having the whole country all of a sudden feel that they've got ownership to slate Liverpool players. I don't like us being in the broader conversation, other than like, aren't Liverpool really good, or aren't we jealous that Liverpool are really good? That's the best way for it to be. But this is everyone's now going to weigh in and give their hot takes, and they're all going to be skewed by a perspective that sits outside of the Liverpool fan base. So yeah, I felt compelled to do a little bit on this, even though it is Sunday and I would like to not have to talk about Liverpool for at least a day. But hey ho, here we go. For what it's worth, right, we don't exactly know what's going to happen next, but I'll tell you what I think has happened and what I think will happen next. And of course, this could be proven wrong in pretty short thrift. Football moves very, very quickly, and we're only 2 days away from Liverpool's next game of football. So yeah, the landscape could shift dramatically in that time. But when we talk about what Salah's sort of said, it feels to me, and look, when he signed the new deal, my initial reaction to it at the time was, I think that means they can sell him in a year. Now, I don't think they will have said that to Mo Salah. I think they'll have said, here's 2 years, mate, on brilliant money. Go out there and show everyone that you are absolutely an elite footballer, and you can be 35, heading towards 36, and still doing it at the top end of the game. Go and do that. A few weeks ago when I was talking about this Salah situation, I went back and looked at Ronaldo, because everyone said throughout last season, look at Ronaldo as proof that you don't like, your career doesn't end at 32, 33. You can go on and be an immense physical sort of specimen. But when you look at Ronaldo's, history, the age that Salah is now, this is when he goes on to Juventus, and look, the Italian league, for whatever it is, isn't quite the power that it once was. It is a step down, I think, from Real Madrid and La Liga. And even though he actually performs well and scores goals, there are concerns over him there. And then, by the time he gets to Manchester United, he's still scoring goals, but he's a bigger problem. He's not only a fading power, but he's a bigger problem because of his ego. And one thing I didn't discuss, and it's being mentioned elsewhere, is it put Erik ten Hag in a really awkward situation. And Ronaldo, although he ends up leaving before Ten Hag doesn't get to be the winner in that situation. And this potentially feels a little bit like Liverpool's hierarchy, seeing this on the horizon and going, well, we're going to allow the manager to make a pretty hefty decision. But yeah, that my overall sort of feeling on this is that I think Liverpool have sold a dream to Salah, which I think is what you do. And, so you can talk about broken promises, and in that regard, yeah, from Salah's perspective, that would absolutely feel terrible. But I think football clubs do this to everyone, right? Like, I'm a huge fan of Moneyball, the film and the book. But it's interesting when you talk about Billy Bean's story, and scouts going in and basically telling players and players' families that they're going to be the great. They've got all this stuff going for them. You have to, because no one wants to, it's part of the process, part of the dance, isn't it? No one's going to sell a player that they're going to be a bit part player and they're not going to be used. You want to be sold on the idea, at worst, that your future is in your hands. And so to realise that that's not the case would catch a lot of players, I guess, by surprise, and certainly ones who are global icons. Salah's ego probably hasn't even considered that this might have been a possibility, whereas a step removed from it, sign Salah down to a new contract, you all of a sudden put a transfer value back to his name. If you can get a boss year out of him, and you can get your new thing up and running, and then you can get, again, a wedge of cash at the end of that, then that feels like a match made in heaven for Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes and Arne Slot, I guess. And look, I'm for fans, and not ideal for Salah, who would probably want to, have all of his best useful days at a top level football club, and I might yet, but that we'll see where he goes, what his next move is, if that's the case. But yeah, that felt like it felt like a reasonable plan. The plan hasn't worked out that way, has it? And I think the best intentions were there, but Liverpool find themselves in a situation where structurally a lot of what they're doing is not working. And I think it's unfair to scapegoat Salah for that entirely. There are bigger issues, and injuries have played a part. There are some huge psychological pressures weighing on this Liverpool team following the passing of Diogo Jota I'm going to continue to say it, and because it is a very, very prevalent point. And Salah's been one of the ones who has demonstrably almost been the most obviously affected by that. We've seen him in tears on the pitch. Andy Robertson's talked about it. The old guard, of course, will be more affected because they spent more time with him. They'll be closer to him as a player, and a worker, a co-worker, and a friend. So that definitely adds to the sort of complication of this situation and the analysis of Liverpool in general this season. But yeah, it's for that reason and a whole host of others, protracted transfer sagas and disrupted pre-seasons, and just a changing landscape of how football's being played in the Premier League this year has left Liverpool not at the levels that are expected, and something kind of has to give. And I'm seeing a lot of people having the debate, is this the end of Slot or is it the end of Salah? And ultimately, it might be the end of both, because if the results don't pick up, then Liverpool will have no choice, I think, ultimately, but to change the manager. My gut feeling on this, though, and whether this is 100% in on Slot, I don't know, but I think Liverpool's hierarchy are 100% in on the plan. And the plan is quite clearly in Alexander Isak, Florian Wirtz, Hugo Ekitike. It's clearly in moving towards your main source of goals being a central striker or a central forward, a goal-scoring number 9, and not coming from the wide areas anymore. It looks like that is the growing evolution in this side, and that is sad. It is, because it means that Salah will have less a role if he can't adapt to fit into that, and I do wonder whether they looked at that and went, well, again, he is a sublime specimen of a human being, an athlete. Maybe he will see this as a challenge and rise to it. And I think anyone who had a cursory glance at Salah this season can say it hasn't really been working for him. It is a bit strange that I feel like his form was picking up just before him being benched, which has kind of made it hard to square away. But yeah, he really hasn't been at the level, and there's loads of calls about whether his legs have gone or whatever. This feels to me a little bit like Liverpool's hierarchy feel that maybe is the case. Like, they have had the best of Salah, and whilst you can still get juice out of a footballer like that, because we have had that already, is there greater value in pulling the trigger now? It's brutal and it's ruthless, but it looks to me like that. This doesn't look to me like a move that says this is the end of Slot. It feels far more like the end of Salah. Whether that's right or wrong and what your opinions are on that, let me know in the comments. But yeah, I'm torn on it, because for me, I like Mohamed Salah more than I like Arne Slot, because I've just spent more time living in a Mo Salah world than I have in an Arne Slot world. I have doubts over Liverpool's manager's ability to turn this round and win in this new iteration of what's coming, because there isn't enough evidence. There is the title win, and he's got that credit in the bank, but I can't escape the nagging doubts of he took a team that I think was very, very underrated and got them across the line. I've said all along, I felt Klopp probably would have been in contention to win the league if he'd stayed around for another year, if he'd had more energy, etc., etc. So I have nagging doubts about Slot's ability regardless. But I've seen Salah deliver for 9 years. I've seen him be one of the best players on the planet for all that time. So yeah, I have a greater depth of positive feeling towards Salah. So I have to, I guess, kind of unpick that a little bit. And that's really tough. Because my biggest fear in all this is, what if you force Mo Salah out the door? And then Slot can't turn things around and gets sacked anyway, and the new guy misses out on a year and a half of having a stupendously talented player like Mo Salah at his disposal. You're very fortunate to hit upon these players sometimes. It's very hard to replace players of that quality. And it can be the beginning of the end of football teams when these players eventually get faded out. So these are my anxieties. This is the thing that was keeping me up until the early hours of the morning on this, when I should have been sleeping soundly and, again, and not thinking about football. I guess a lot of people maybe feel that way, and there'll be people who've got less time for Slot and more time for Salah, who will lean even more towards Salah, and vice versa. There is a Liverpool attitude, I think, that the manager's king. We deify our managers at Liverpool. They have to earn that right, but we do. The manager of the football club come first, and a player coming out and speaking out feels very un-Liverpool, and I don't think that's a good way to enamor yourself. Now, last season, Mo kind of pitched the fans against the club. It was a PR mess in the midst of a title challenge, but he could get away with it because he was performing to a stupendous level week in, week out. And it does show the fickle nature of football, and that's not great, but it is what football is. We just want to see good players playing well and Liverpool winning football matches. As much as we talk about this, this means more. And we did a video, Steve and I, on Redmen yesterday, and we've got the unity of strength thing in the banner in the background, and the amount of people are going, oh my God, imagine having unity of strength behind you while you're talking about this kind of situation. And yeah, that's footy is one of the most hypocritical things you can possibly follow. It's crazy how quickly you can turn on it, but that's the nature of sport, isn't it? You're only as good as how good you are in the here and now. Can you continue to perform at the top level? And if not, then I think, and this is where I kind of sit on it right now, is Liverpool are on the verge of making a huge call, or perhaps a huge set of calls. Something is not quite right in Liverpool. I don't think it's been brilliant since dropping Salah. I don't think Liverpool have been stunning and sensational, but they didn't look like a team who had down tools. They didn't look like a team who'd given up. They look like a team who've got some mental fragility that I think can possibly be worked through. But it did feel like something. It did feel like a bit of something. So it doesn't feel to me like the players have gone beyond and Slot has lost the dressing room. But Salah come out, it feels like they've lost Salah. And so you've got to make a decision on what to do with all that. Do you cut him out and move forward? And I think it looks to me like that's what they've decided to do. Liverpool are doubling down on the plan, and that plan is Isak, Wirtz, Ekitike and co. It is to switch towards the future. It is not to go back to what Liverpool have been doing and try and get one last hurrah out of the old way of doing things, because fundamentally, without Trent and without Diaz and without Nunes and Jota, and with someone like Kanate in spotty form as well, and again, Salah just a year older, this team is worse than last season's team. So even if we try to go back to the team that won the title, it is already a worse 11 for it in that system. So they've kind of bought for this, and circumstances have conspired against them, particularly with the Jota thing. So they've kind of got no choice but to press forward. Now, other teams in other situations, Chelsea did this a couple of times, where they just went one last time, go back to the old lads, and it kind of worked for them. But this feels like Liverpool are going, well, look, this is going to come at some point. We didn't really want it to be now, but if it's now, fuck, right, okay, let's deal with it. And yeah, they're going to double down on the manager for now. But when I say the double down on the plan, I think the plan can continue to be the plan whether you've got Slot in charge or not. So I don't think this categorically says Slot is absolutely, enshrined and untouchable. If the results don't pick up, I think they'll have to change the manager as well. But I think the overriding plan, this is why Arne Slot's a head coach and not the manager, comes from Liverpool's football brain trust have decided that this is the sort of overriding strategy moving forward. They're not going to throw Isak. You can't throw Isak and Ekitike in the bin and Wirtz on a player who's 33 years old and is, regardless of all of his fitness and his good habits, is coming toward the tail end of his career for a short-term win. They're clearly in this for the next 5 years of Liverpool, which again, it's just sad. It's really, really sad. You don't want this. You want I'd like Liverpool to get out of this world where all of our players, you know, are in a situation where they get clapped off on free transfers. You know, it's nice and it's great for the heroics that they've shown, but Liverpool do need to get back to being a bit more ruthless and using footballers up, getting all of their best years out, and then getting inflated money for them and letting their legs go on other clubs' wage bills. That is the old school Liverpool way. That was Man United's way when they were dominating the league. You know, Man City do this, you know, all the time. Top clubs kind of do this, and we're a very emotional football club, an emotional fan base, and that is one of our strengths. It's something I really believe in, which is what makes things like this so very, very difficult. But it comes back to it. I think we all just want to see a Liverpool play, and if someone has made the decision that Salah isn't a part of that, I guess that's kind of it. Whether we agree with it or not, that's someone else's decision to take, really. But yeah, it is a big call if that's the way it goes. I just can't see a way back for him. I just don't, you know, unless Slot does go, I can't see a way back for Salah, because I just don't think he'd come out and talk like that. And again, just lastly on it really is, there is a world where Salah can come out and he's been told, right, look, we're going to use you less because we think that you're physically not quite up to the standard here, mate. We think your legs are going, but you've got a huge role to play in this. So to handle this and see what you can do with it. And there's a world where Salah, on the back of that, comes out and goes, I'm not in the team right now, but I'm going to train extra hard. Whenever I get my moments on the pitch, whether it's 5 minutes, half an hour or 90, I am going to score goals and I'm going to try and win games of football for Liverpool. And that would, I think, galvanise and maybe give everyone a lift. Van Dijk's been doing that kind of stuff. But it says to me, when he talks about broken promises, that I think he knows that the writing's on the wall, that he knows that his time at Liverpool is up. So therefore, there's kind of no point in saying that kind of stuff, because it simply wouldn't be true. And that's, yeah, where I feel that we're coming. I think, yeah, Brighton could well be Mohamed Salah's last game for Liverpool, out of nothing, out of the blue. And that's why he said it, because it's his last opportunity to speak to the press, to kind of get his side out, which is, you know, very much in his self-interest. I don't think it benefits the football club. I don't think it helps Liverpool win more games of football, but Salah's a big man, big boy, grown up, earned the right to do as he pleases. If he goes, he'll go with everyone's best wishes at Liverpool, because he's been a Mount Rushmore player for this historically incredible football club and one of the Premier League's greatest footballers of all time as well. We'd like it to end with more of a happy ending, but yeah, it kind of is what it is, really. Do you think that's the case? Do you think this is a sign of inevitability of the end of Salah? Is there a way back for him? Would it need a new manager? And, you know, has Salah got what's required in the tank left to drag Liverpool forward again, to get them back on track before going? I really don't know. And ultimately, I don't think anyone knows, so it is an impossible question, and it is one based in opinion, and emotion rather than any fact. We're going to have to see how this one plays out. But yeah, it's a big call. I'm not against big calls. I'm really not. You know, a bold action is better than inaction, and expecting things to, you know, that things won't, you know, will just naturally improve. If they feel like there's a huge global star and he is surplus requirements all of a sudden, and he is going to be a negative influence, then yeah, you know, take the name away and look at it from that perspective. Then no player is bigger than Liverpool. But Salah's come about as close as anyone in recent years, so that's what makes it so difficult. Anyway, yeah, look, I might have missed some things. This might be a little bit of a higgledy-piggledy mess. I apologise. Please do read the Substack article if you want some slightly more coherent, laid-out thoughts on all of this. And before I go, listen, life goes on, right? If you haven't picked up a copy of my book yet and you want to, we've got a week left on UK guaranteed Christmas delivery. So if you want to and you haven't taken the plunge on that yet and you want it for Christmas, then do. I'll link to all that stuff. Ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. Existential crises on a Sunday morning. Lovely. Isn't it great being a Liverpool fan sometimes? Absolute mad. But we move a couple of days to Liverpool playing again, and hopefully we can get back to winning ways, and that will soothe our fevered brows a little bit.